Hi, I'm Walt Belcher with a Florida folk tale. It's a jack tale, and in Florida that would be a crackerjack tale. Anyway, it takes place back in the days when people lived in cabins. And Jack lived in a cabin up in the North Florida area, in the piney woods of North Florida near a lake. Lived with his mother and father. And Jack was about 20 years old. He was a good looking kid. He had curly blonde hair and blue eyes, and he was always happy, happy fellow. In fact, he was a little too happy sometimes, and people couldn't tell if Jack was very smart and cunning or if he was just so darn lucky. Anyway, one morning Jack's asleep and his father tries to wake him up. Jack, get up, Jack. We got trouble. We got trouble. We're all out of food. We're all out of money, and we have nothing to eat in the house. Now I saw some rabbit tracks out in front of the house. And I'm getting too old to do this, but I wondered if you'd take my old rifle there off the shelf. And I only got one bullet left, Jack, only one bullet. Could you go get that rabbit? You take the gun and the bullet and bring that rabbit home for dinner. If we have that rabbit, we'll survive another day. And Jack says, sure, I'll do it, because Jack always said he would do it, whether he could do it or not. And so Jack puts on his boots and his overalls and his red flannel shirt, and he gets the bullet and puts it in an overall pocket. And he gets the gun off the shelf and puts it over his shoulder and heads out the door. Jack never did walk. He kind of ambled off into the forest, following those tracks. Jack was a mosier. He was a great mosier. He was the greatest mosier in North Florida. He could take a 2-hour walk and turn it into a 4-hour mosey. That's how good he was at wasting time. And he was going along, enjoying the flowers and the birds and the trees, and under a big oak tree, up above him, he hears gobble, 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 gobble. And he looks up, and there's two wild turkeys sitting on a limb. And they don't see Jack because they're gobbling away. And Jack says, I could shoot one of those turkeys, and that'd be plenty to eat. But Daddy wants a rabbit, and I got one bullet. And I better try to get that rabbit, but maybe I can get him with my slingshot. So he takes the slingshot out of his pocket, because he always carried a slingshot. Pew! Shoots a rock up there, and that rock misses those turkeys by a mile. That rock goes up and hits a branch above them, breaks it off, and it comes right down on top of their heads, knocks them to the ground cold. And Jack says, I got 2 turkeys. Wow, that's plenty to eat. But Daddy wants a rabbit, and I got one bullet left. Jack was a literalist, and I got to get that rabbit for Daddy. And all this commotion of the turkeys falling out of the tree has aroused the attention of a Florida black bear. Yeah, that black bear was in the woods nearby, and it hears all this, and it comes out and it sees Jack up against that tree, and it rears up on its hind legs, and it's got its claws out, and it's got its mouth wide open, and it's drooling, and his teeth are showing, and it's bearing down on Jack. And Jack can smell its breath, and he puts his arm up to try to fend it off, defend himself, and his arm goes right down inside that bear's mouth, right down through his gullet, right down through his innards, and Jack grabs hold of his tailbone, pulls that bear inside out. I told you it was strong. And my goodness, Mama, I got you a fur coat, and I got all this meat here, and I got 2 turkeys, but I didn't get a rabbit yet, and I still got one bullet left. Maybe I better keep on going. And then about that time, something else comes out of the forest. Yeah, there was a wild hog, an old boar hog, a male hog, heard that all this commotion with the bear, and it comes out and it sees Jack there, and it's got its tusks out, and it's gonna ram Jack and gut him, and it's headed right toward him, bearing down on him, and Jack faints away. He's so scared, he faints, and that boar plows into the tree and knocks its brains out. And Jack wakes up and he says, oh my goodness, yeah, we're gonna eat out high on the hog tonight, because I got a real hog here, and I got a bear and 2 turkeys, and all I got's this sack Daddy gave me to carry that rabbit home in. And I don't think I can get all that in there, but I'm going to pile them up right here, and I got to wash myself off after getting inside that messy bear. And so he goes down to the edge of the lake, and he lays his rifle down in the mud, and he takes off his shoes and his shirt. And he doesn't take off his overalls, because he doesn't want people to see him in his underwear. And he wades in knee deep, and he starts washing himself off. And then about that time, he hears honk, honk, honk. He looks up in the sky, and coming in from the north are 6 wild Canadian geese. And there's 6 of them flying in formation toward the lake. And then he hears quack, 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 and he looks up to the south, and there's 6 ducks coming in. They're going quack, 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 and they're flying in formation, and they're coming into the lake. He says, wow, this is a busy place, isn't it? Something's going, they might run into each other. And then he looks up across the lake, right at the water line, not a few hundred yards from him. He sees these 2 eyes, these two glowing eyes. They're red and yellow and green. They're reptilian eyes. It's a gator. It's a big old Florida gator, and it's looking at Jack, and it's coming toward Jack. And Jack says, oh, sorry, Daddy. I'm gonna have to use this bullet and save myself from that gator. And so Jack, he picks up the gun out of the mud, the old rifle, and he pulls a bullet out of his overall pocket. He puts it in that rifle. He's getting ready to take aim on that gator when all of a sudden, down in the water, coming up his leg, he feels something slimy, and it sticks him in his calf. It's a catfish, a big old whiskered catfish caught in his pants. And that catfish stings him about the time he's ready to pull the trigger. Well, Jack goes back, and the gun goes off. Well, that gun was old and rusty, hadn't been fired in years, and it had been in the mud. It explodes, and half the barrel goes up there and knocks those geese out of the air, and the other half of the barrel goes to the south and knocks the ducks out of the air. And the stock of the gun hits Jack in the shoulder, flies over and kills a deer that's behind him. The bullet goes up, straight up, 1.5 miles, and turns around, comes back right through that gator's brain. And Jack looks up and says, oh my gosh, I got a gator. I got 6 geese. I got 6 ducks. I got a deer, all with 1 shot. And then he looks down on his overalls, and he notices a brass button. One of his brass buttons is missing. And it flew off. And it flew off with a lot of force. And it went down, and he's looking down the lake line, and there it was. There it was, stuck right in the head of the rabbit. So Jack said, well, I got the rabbit. Praise the Lord, Jack. Daddy's going to have the rabbit after all. And I did all that with 1 shot. And he said, well, then I can't get everything home. You know, there's too much here. There's a lot of stuff here. I can't get that. Then he remembered that on the lake, there lived a man named Brown, Mr. Brown. He was the richest man in the valley. And Brown had a cart and a donkey and a horse and a mule. And Jack said, I could just borrow that cart and donkey and get all this stuff home if Mr. Brown would loan it to me. So he goes over to Mr. Brown's house and leaves all the animals piled up in a big pile there, and goes up to Mr. Brown and says, Mr. Brown, tells him the story. Mr. Brown, I bet caught all these animals. He said, Jack, you are the greatest 1-bullet hunter I have ever seen. Either you're extremely good or very lucky. But man, I'll give you my donkey and cart, and I'll give you $500 to boot if you take care of a little problem for me. Jack says, what? He says, well, you being the big hunter and all, I got this panther, this Florida panther that keeps coming up in killing my livestock, and I can't get it. I can't catch it. I can't shoot it. It just it's too elusive. But I'm going to give you my bolt action shotgun. You go down there and you bring it back, you can have all those things. You know, and Jack says, yeah, sure, I'll do it. I can do that. He always said he could do it, whether he could or not. And Jack takes the bolt action, and he heads off into the woods, and he gets deep in the woods, and he comes up on the panther. It's asleep under a big oak tree. And he's trying to get the bolt action shotgun to work, and he doesn't know how to use it. He's not good with guns. Never fired one, not bolt action. And he throws it down. I can't use this shotgun. Then he sees a rock over there beside the tree. He says, I could slip over there if I don't wake that panther up. I can climb up that tree and drop that rock on his head. That'll do it. So Jack, try anything. He gets the rock, and he's climbing up the tree, and he's lugging the rock, and he's going up the tree, and he gets up, and he gets right over that panther, and the limb that he's on breaks. And Jack falls straight down and lands on that panther's back. And the panther jumps up and just starts trying to buck Jack off. And Jack's hanging on for dear life, and he's holding on to the panther's ears. And he's going along, and they're bouncing down the forest, through the forest, up the road, and they come into Mr. Brown's yard and all that. And Mr. Brown comes out, and he says, I got to save Jack's life. He says, he's in trouble. And Mr. Brown takes his rifle and shoots the panther out from under Jack. And Jack stops for a minute. His wheels are turning in his head, I guess. He's thinking that. He starts crying. Oh, you shot the panther. Oh, you killed the panther. Huh? Mr. Brown said, what's wrong with you, Jack? I saved your life. Jack said, oh, no, I wasn't in danger. No, I was trying to tame that panther. I was going to take it home to mother. She's never had a pet. By the time I got through breaking that thing, it would have been eaten out of her hand instead of eating her hand. Yeah, it would have been her pet, and you shot it. Mr. Brown says, oh, well, okay, I'm sorry about that, son. I didn't realize that. Let me give you another $500 and we'll be okay. Jack smiled and said, thank you, sir, thank you. And Jack went home with that cart and that donkey and all those animals. And his mother and father had alligator shoes and alligator belts, and they had a fur coat, and they bought a freezer, and they ate on that food for 3 years. And that's how Jack became the greatest one-bullet hunter in the history of Florida. Thank you.